Gentlemen, we're going to start. So if everybody will have a seat, Okay, so welcome to our first ever joint meeting. This is a first time meeting at Bethel for our joint session. And I hope when the men from the Bethel Men's Club join us, I hope you'll allow them to sit and share the tables together so we can get to know each other. Dick Knopf, can you start with telling us about new membership? Where is Dick? No, Dick's out front now, so we'll have to skip that. I'm also supposed to tell you that we've put together something called Taskmaster. Taskmaster is a list of all the activities that the different chair people have involved, and we've asked that they find other people to help them out. So you eventually, if you're not part of doing any activity together with other people here, we're eventually going to ask to see if there's any activity that you can join the presidents and vice presidents of the different organizations. Are there any new people here, any guests here today? Any new members? Okay, an old member coming back? Yes. Okay. Is Albert Kaiser here? Okay. Okay. So we have no new members here today to introduce? Okay. We have a couple of projects that we'll be working on soon. One is called the Passover Seder Project. Mike, do you want to, where's Mike? You want to just give us a brief?
Yeah, it's an idea. We call it a winning program. And there's always people that have nowhere to go for a Passover Seder. Could be that the family, the kids are in another state. They just can't make it for one reason or another. And we came up with the idea that why not have guys who have room at their homes for their Seders say, okay, well, if this men's club member can't make it, you're invited to come to us. So that everybody has somewhere to go for Passover. And so consequently, we're asking anybody who needs a place to go for themselves, perhaps their spouse, to go for a Seder, let us know, and we'll pair you up with someone else who's got room. Now, off the top of your head, how many people would be willing to have a guest from the men's club do the Passover Seder at your house? Okay, so right there we got, looks like about a half a dozen. And if you need to have a place to go, let us know. And we'll match it up in terms of the ones who do the whole thing, you know, the Seder mostly in Hebrew and the whole 9 yards and done by midnight, and the others who say, okay, it's Passover, they tried to kill us, they failed, we're here, let's eat. So somewhere in the middle is where most people fit, all right? All right, that's about it. Don't forget, if you have an interest in looking for a place, let Ed or myself know, and we'll match you up.
In fact, eventually, I guess there'll be an email going out, and there'll be a contact person to coordinate, because we have plenty of time before that happens. Okay, good. So some of the other projects we're thinking about would include going to a Trenton Thunder baseball game next season. So hopefully you'll have some interest, and you can bring family members as well. There's also an interest every year at Super Sunday. We have a request that we man the phones, but last year they asked us to also help out with food distribution, food preparation. And so Super Sunday is going to be in January, and we're hopeful that some of the members will agree to help out with food preparation. And Dave Swartz, could you tell us a little bit about coping with Christmas?
Christmas Day is Friday the 25th. We're meeting at Short Hills for brunch. We're not meeting for dinner because it's Shabbat. So 12:30, Short Hills, back corner accommodates about 40 people. That's the good news. The bad news is we already have 30 people who've made reservations. So it would behoove you to call us soon and let us know if you can come. And it's for husbands and wives, whoever wants to come. You can choose from the menu and it's separate checks. So hope to see you there. Thank you.
If in fact you're interested, we probably do have room for maybe another 10 people. And I'll give you the phone number of Herb Magnus if you have a pen handy. Or if not, see me later, I'll give you his number. But it's 856-482-8843. And we can accommodate maybe another 5 to 10 people. We had a lot of fun last year for the Coping with Christmas dinner. This year it's going to be at the Short Hills. The nice thing is, because I had to deal with the money last year, it's separate checks this year. So that's pretty good. Another thing that we're talking about is Jews, schmooze, and booze. And we're thinking of just not a meeting, but just getting together for a dinner, possibly at the pub. You'll have more information going out by email once we get that organized. And I'd also like some feedback later about your thoughts and feelings about these joint meetings. So you can see me, call me, send me an email. I'd love to get some feedback. Dave Wynn, can you tell us a little bit about JAG?
The big thing with JAG right now is that the JCC,
What's JAG?
the Jewish Athletic Group, for those of you outside of Mike Perla that don't know what JAG is, the JCC has requested admission to JAG. They don't quite meet the definition of organization, but by interpretation, I believe we can bring them in. The biggest problem is they already announced that they're in JAG, and there's not been an official vote yet because we haven't had an official meeting yet. And the worst part is they said, you know, join our softball team, and we might have other sports for you to play in. There was nothing in there that indicated that they had to meet the JAG requirements, which is being Jewish or a member of a synagogue. And we know that a lot of people that go to the JCC are not Jewish, and I will have to go back and talk to Rob Kiwi, the acting person for the JCC, on that, because either they only have people that meet those requirements, or that are no longer the Jewish athletic group. Outside of that, most of the events have died down. We had a bowling tournament at the beginning of this month. We did have a team, and it's always good to have a team represent us. Beth, our host here.
Now, usually when we meet, we have a short meeting, and then we start to have breakfast together. Right now, the basic part of the meeting is over, and we're not having breakfast for a little bit. So we're going to schmooze a little bit, but I thought, yes, sir?
Yeah, I just had a question about the next month. There's that regional Man of the Year dinner.
Yes.
South Jersey Men's Club have a representative, and is there subsidies if you want to go?
Okay. We got an email at the last minute from, if you're not aware, that we're part of what is called the Middle Atlantic region of the Federation of Men's Clubs. And they have a annual activity, Man of the Year. We really didn't talk about it until we got a last minute email from MAR. And the board got an email blasted out. Are we going to do it? Who's going to be the person representing us? Then all the other details have to follow. So hopefully a decision will be made very shortly. We may skip it. We've skipped it a couple years. I was at a board meeting of the Middle Atlantic region, and one of the things I recommended was maybe not do it every year, because they have a lot of people to call upon to represent them, and they usually just have their rabbi represent them as their Man of the Year. But you know, it's a truth that in any organization like this, it's a handful of people that do most of the work. And every one of those people have already been the Man of the Year, and we didn't want to duplicate. But if you have a suggestion for who would who you'd like to nominate for Man of the Year, just see me during the meeting.
Could I take a second?
Here.
I think most of you are aware that we have a mitzvah fund. Len Berman takes care of the mailing of the cards. What it is basically is...
Talk to the mic there.
No, it echoes. It's better off without it.
I'll talk a little bit louder. I put a few sheets together that I was going to pass out, and what we'll do is we'll attach these to an email and send them to all of you so that you have the information. I think a lot of the members aren't aware of it, don't use it, forget about it. Some of us use it quite often. But anyway, for a $5 contribution to the South Jersey Men's Club Mitzvah Fund, a personalized greeting card with a handwritten message will be sent out at your request. And basically, I'm going to read this. Please provide the information listed below to Len Berman at his email address, and cards can be utilized for the following purposes: congratulations for weddings, birth, graduations, get well wishes, condolences. I have Len's email address on here, and you'll all get this as an email. And basically, you're providing your name, your signature, how you want the card signed. Len writes your message, handwrites your message on the card, and it gets mailed. And it's for the benefit of the Mitzvah Fund, which we use for donations for various things. If anybody has any, what was that, Len?
He said most of the time it's legible.
Most of the time it's legible. In fact, for an extra $1, he'll make sure it's legible. Anyway, so if you could use that, it'll benefit the club. It's a nice card. People who get them have acknowledged back to us and said we really appreciate the card. The club will also send a card out if you let Len know that someone is ill in the hospital, has a condolence. The club will also send them a card, and there's no charge to you for that. So at the same time you're sending a card, let him know, he'll know that, and the club will send a card also, and that'll be from the club. Any questions about that? You'll get it as an email. We'll put it out, Randy will put it out as a blast. We're up to 83 members this year so far. We'll get an influx in a few months of the baseball players, so that'll bring us up probably into the 90s. So if anybody's here this morning and hasn't paid their dues yet, I don't think we're going to throw you out, but would you please pay your dues? Any questions, or Mike?
I think the $5 is a minimum. Quite often we'll have people donate more. Just needed to point that out. For the, not $5 is the minimum for the mitzvah card. Okay.
Yeah, on that vein, there was a gentleman this morning who came up to me and saw that the 50-50 was for the benefit of the food bank, and gave me an extra $10. If anybody would like to do that, we'll keep that aside from the 50-50, and that'll be part of our donation to the food bank.
I have a question.
Sure.
Some of us are getting free turkeys at the market. Do you accept those?
You know, I don't know if Mike, you may know the answer to that.
I spoke to the people over at the Jewish Family Service, and they said that, but we all know that they do run out of food periodically, but they said that they're short about 30 turkeys for people who requested them for their families for Thanksgiving. And I think that's what Ed just referenced. I'm not sure what to do if you have an extra turkey, or quite often there's programs like a ShopRite and other places where if you buy a certain amount of money, you qualify to get a free turkey. But there's going to be someone here from Jewish Family Service to accept the 50-50 proceeds, and we'll find out and let everybody know by the end of the meeting. All right? It does not have to be kosher turkeys. They would like it to be, because they rarely get them. So that's a good question.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, at one point, I don't know what happened, but you were going to have a meeting of the various presidents of the synagogues, of the men's clubs, in order to coordinate if one's having an affair and blah, blah, blah. So it was a great idea, and I kind of fizzled out, I think.
It hasn't fizzled out. Dave, do you want to make any announcement about it? Thanks, a good question. Thank you.
I contacted Les Cohen to see if the JCC would be willing to give a facility for having a meeting of the men's club presidents. And Les Cohen said yes, he would be willing to send out the announcement. Can you hear me better? No. Okay. Can you hear me better here? Yeah?
You're fine. That's just for the recording.
Oh, okay.
Talk amongst yourself.
So, basically, I drafted a memo to send to Les Cohen. I have not sent it out. I have not received any comments on the content of that memo, because I want to make sure that, that not only me, but other people are happy with the content of the memo. The only comment I got back in is I asked the presidents to send me their responses, and that the responses should go to Les. So now I have to ask Les as to whether he's willing to accept the responses and do whatever administrative work is there. No, maybe he'll do it, maybe he won't do it, but I'm going to do that. What I'm basically trying to get out to Les by the end of this month, that he can send out to get responses by the end of next month, is to maybe schedule the meeting sometime in January, last couple of weeks in January. What we really would like the men's club presidents to get together is to try and discuss things that we could do together that might make each of our men's clubs run better. We've talked before about the Jewish Athletic Group, which is one area where men's clubs have gotten together. But there may be others, such as a joint meeting where you can get better speakers if you have 100 people rather than if you only have 30 or 40 people. So we're trying to discuss areas in which men's clubs can operate on a better, more efficient, more productive manner. And whatever ideas they have, we will try and put together in some sort of a program. So the idea is there. It's not in fruition yet, but hopefully we'll have something. Now, Les asked me, will all the men's club presidents show up? And I said categorically no. If we get half the men's club presidents there, I think it would be a roaring success. What I found, and I developed the Jewish Athletic Group, is you get a few people that find something is interesting, get together, work, and put it together, and it's successful. At that point, other people come in, other people that don't want to do the work and don't want to get involved in anything else, but are willing to join something. So if we get at least half the presidents together and we get something going from there, I think that other clubs will join in the future. So the thing is, we must understand that it's not going to be a great, gigantic gathering, but if we get started, I think we can move in that direction. Anybody have a question or suggestion for me on that? Yeah.
Just curious, how many presidents are there?
There's at least a dozen presidents I have. And we're talking not of just conservative. The Orthodox, by the way, don't, Sons of Israel doesn't have a men's club, Ner Tamid doesn't have a men's club. But there are many men's clubs around here. And we're talking not only about synagogue men's clubs. We have Beth Sholem, the Chabad, well, that's a synagogue. We have, I have a list of about a dozen men's club presidents in the area. Yeah.
Ner Tamid does have a men's club.
Well, they always told me they didn't. They have a men's club now?
They have a men's club, but it's not a very active men's club.
Yeah, because I've been basically dealing with the president, Ray Bloom.
Ray Bloom's not the president anymore.
Well, somebody give me that information, because my information is still Ray Bloom. But so we have been contacting presidents of organizations that don't have men's clubs, as well as men's club presidents.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
We have one more speaker from our men's club to talk to you, but just as a reminder, when the men from the temple come here, since we're all congregated together, see if we can allow some room so they can join us at our tables. We join them at their tables so we can get to know some of them. Mike Perloff was very busy dealing with, what did you call it, Israel advocacy? Could you tell us a little bit about the program you attended?
Hi, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Mike Perloff. I was one of the past presidents. And just to point out, so some of the guests here, South Jersey Men's Club is one of the only groups that you'll ever be a part of where nobody ever gets burned out, and every past president still participates. Nobody has dropped off the face of the earth after their tenure. Now, what Ed Silver was talking about was not Israel advocacy that I was part of, but I'm sure everybody has heard of the modern father of Zionism, Theodore Herzl, correct? We've all seen pictures of him at the first Zionist Congress in Switzerland. Well, the 37th Zionist Congress was just held last month in Israel, in Jerusalem. It happens every 4 or 5 years. And delegates come from all over the world. The largest delegation is allocated for Israelis. We get, here in the United States, about 145. And in every country, it's decided who's going to represent the Jewish communities by whatever way their organizations decide they want to do it. Some, they just appoint them. And some, like here in the United States and also Canada and a few other countries, they have elections. And in this country, the Zionist organizations, everywhere from the far, far left to the far, far right, from the secular all the way to the super Orthodox, are part of the American Zionist movement. The American Zionist movement, which I'm sure most people never heard of, is an organization that's the umbrella for all these Zionist groups. And they put up who it is that they would like to, in a list of who they recommend. Because we have 145 delegates for the United States, every party, and there was 11, lists 145 names. Well, I was lucky enough to be on the list for Merkaz. Merkaz is the organization that represents the conservative movement. I was number 38 on the list. We got 27 at the end of the elections. We got 27, they call mandates. So I went as an alternate. And when I went as an alternate, I was waiting for people to drop off. I needed 2 more people to go, and I'd be a full delegate. 2 more. I tried. But what happened was, it turns out as an alternate, I kept having people come over at the Congress and saying, Mike, here's my voting thing. Take care of it. I have to go to a meeting. Or Mike, here's my voting thing. I have something I have to go do. All right, now what is this World Zionist Congress? We've all heard, I'm sure, of the Jewish National Fund. And we've all heard of some of the other major organizations. The World Zionist Congress is where they vote on resolutions on who's going to be the president, who's going to be the vice president, what policies do they have, do they want to do away with some of their programs, or do they want to have new departments formed? And it was mind-blowing. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I've never been part of such a Byzantine organization. Everything's decided in the committee, and there's resolutions that come in from all over the world. And at that committee, something could be completely voted down. They want nothing to do with it. But there's a rule that somebody can get up and say, votum separatum, which means that even though it's completely turned down, with nobody even having to second it, it can then go to the General Assembly to be voted on with no discussions. Then the people in charge, if they don't want something, don't want a resolution that everybody else may want it, they'll put it near the end so that it's guaranteed they won't get a chance to vote on it. And then it's voted at the yearly ones by a small group. But all in all, I found it to be fascinating. It was something like I've never been part of in my entire life. Because I'm sitting in the group with Merkaz, which was for America, and right next to me there was a Jew from India who was representing their Jewish community. There was one from New Zealand. There was one from Argentina, from Chile, from all over the world. And there were times where somebody made a speech. And you'd see, like, this table. They're cheering and clapping, and this table. They're cheering and clapping. Everybody else looks like they're at a funeral because they liked what the guy was speaking about. And then the next speech comes along, completely the opposite. It was true theater, and it's something that I hope to be elected to go to when it happens in 5 more years. So it was a great thing. It was a wonderful thing. And it was truly an educational thing, and I'll do a program on it sometime in the future. The last thing that I'll say is we had 5 men and their spouses on an Israel trip at the same time. And if those guys are here, would you just stand up, please? The people who went on the Israel trip. Okay, thank you.
Everybody except Marty.
Everybody but Marty. And we actually had a chance to meet up in Jerusalem. The last thing was Alan Finkelstein was also in Israel, and he was there doing a charity bike ride down, I don't remember where it started, maybe Jerusalem to Eilat, I think. And I was able to see him in Tel Aviv, and we had dinner on the beach at one of the restaurants. Next time we do something, I think it'd be great if we could have more participants. One other thing that you could do with me would be working on an Army base, and you had a program on that last month. And with that, I'll turn the mic back over to Ed Sover.
Thank you, Mike. I want to test the microphone now. Is it better? Thank you. Dick Knopf, could you clear that table of the name tags so that we can free up when the other gentlemen come in? So at this point, we usually break for breakfast, but we have another 10 minutes or so. So what we decided to do was have a little quiz. So if you're willing, I'd like to engage in a Phillies baseball team quiz and see how much you know about baseball. So while you guys are getting coffee, apparently, does anybody know what pitcher has the most opening day starts for the Phils? I hear Robin Roberts. Steve Carlton was the answer. As the visiting team in 1935, the Phillies took on Cincinnati Reds at Crosley Field. What kind of first event was that baseball game? Night game. Yes, sir. Oh, we're going to start now. Okay, that's the end of our quiz. We're going to have our breakfast now. Thanks.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Gentlemen.
Gentlemen, good morning. I'm Yoel Weiss. I'm the president of Bethel Men's Club, and it is my pleasure to welcome everybody here this morning. South Jersey Men's Club, it's a pleasure to have you. Some of you guys reached out to me at the Man of the Year dinner last December and talked about maybe getting together and putting together a joint meeting. And that was the seed that laid the foundation for what we're about to do this morning. So it looked like it worked out really well. We're very excited to have you guys here. We're very excited that you guys reached out and were able to get the speaker that we're going to have this morning. It's phenomenal. So just on behalf of Men's Club, Bethel, I'd like to welcome everybody here. Breakfast is open. Speaker should be here in about half hour or so.
Right here.
Unless he's here sooner. Snuck him in, didn't tell. So special welcome to you. Gentlemen, breakfast is served.
If you have a seat, we can get started.
Good morning. Yaron Siedman is the Consul General of Israel to the Mid-Atlantic region. Now, you may see just one person here, but I think there's got to be clones because he is the diplomat that serves southern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, and Delaware. I don't know how he does it. He does have now a Deputy Consul General who is also out speaking at different venues. Yaron is a graduate of the Israel Defense College, and some of his earlier posts were in Nigeria. And he was also at the Foreign Ministry in charge of Congressional Affairs at the North American Division. Now, the Consul will tell us about the diplomatic situation, the source going on in Israel and how they're handling it, perhaps a little bit about Iran, and of course, Israel advocacy, and we'll try to leave about 15 minutes for questions. If you do have a question, I ask that it's a brief question, and with all due respect, if there's a lot of questions, with a brief answer. Consul General Yaron Siedman.
Thank you, Mike. Actually, let me start with Israel advocacy, because Mike, you were modest before not to discuss the programs that you put together in that respect. You talked at great length about your experiences at the Zionist Congress. but just 2 or 3 weeks ago, you put together a remarkable program of Israel advocacy on behalf of Merkaz that took place in Philadelphia, and on an almost annual basis, Mike puts together these programs. And you know, we're all here because we care about Israel, and caring is important, but we have to constantly creatively find ways of translating our passion and our caring into action, and it's not always easy to do. And that is why programs such as yours, which provide that menu of options of how to engage and how to be involved. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Are critically important. And so I just wanted to laud your efforts in that regard. Also, very appreciative of having been invited here, but I do expect an invitation to the Jews Schmooze and particularly booze program. The JAG thing, I think I can skip. That I'm not. By the way, the two criteria are being Jewish and belonging to a synagogue. No athletic criteria you know, and I listened very well. Still, I will pass on that. So let me start by introducing in a few words what we do at the Israeli consulate, and then I'll try and go over some of the challenges and opportunities that Israel faces these days in light of events that are taking place literally these past few days and weeks. But a word about what we do at the consulate for those who are not as familiar or who are not familiar with us. So Israel obviously is represented in the United States diplomatically by an embassy in Washington, D.C., as many other countries are. But it also has not one but 9 consulates spread throughout the nation that also are an integral part of Israel's diplomatic representation to the United States. And while both the embassy and the consulates really share the same mission statement of fostering, enhancing, deepening U.S.-Israel ties and building support, garnering support and friendship towards Israel here in the United States. The main difference between what the embassy does and what the consulates do is that while an embassy carries out that mission on a government-to-government level, that it works with, represents the Israeli government to the United States government, a consulate typically does the same thing, only on a state, local, and grassroots level. Now, I've spent a few years monitoring and supervising Israel's agenda with the U.S. Congress in one of my prior positions in Israel, and I was astounded while doing that to witness the very broad friendship and support Israel enjoys in the U.S. Congress, and the bipartisan nature of that support, which is really a pillar of Israel-U.S. ties, I have to say. I was told once by a member of Congress that Israel is probably the last standing issue where Democrats and Republicans can still agree on, and, which flashed a warning sign because it may very well be the next issue for disagreement. But I also was quick to learn that that support, while it may manifest itself on the Hill, it doesn't start there. And it doesn't originate there, but rather here, in rooms like this, and in discussions like these, and in meetings with state elected officials, with local leaders, with ward leaders, with county commissioners, with civic, economic, and social influentials, on a very local level. This is where it starts, And it starts by meeting and building mutually beneficial relationships with these people and communities. Because at the end of the day, not everyone is always interested in hearing about what we're about to discuss, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and Iran. People are very interested, though, in furthering their business interests, scaling up their business activities, and forming academic relations, and the culture that Israel has to offer, and in the diverse nature of Israel's population. That people are very much interested not just to learn about, but to experience. And we are in the business at the consulates of offering those things, of making them accessible. And if I had to sum it up in 2 words, building relationships between Israel and the region, Mike, that you mentioned we cover, but based on these principles of building mutually beneficial relationships in areas that add value all around. Before plunging into the geopolitical scene, I will just say that part of our mission statement at the consulate, and a huge part of it, is engaging with the Jewish communities in our region. And that too, by the way, is not done in order to bring peace in the Middle East or stop centrifuges from spinning in Iran. We do that and we engage in an honest, open, frank dialogue on an equal footing. We don't come to a Jewish community and try and indoctrinate our talking points, but really engage in an honest, open dialogue, because we care about our future as a Jewish people. And if the 2 main Jewish centers of population in the world today, which are Israel and the United States, do not interact and engage with each other, then 1, 2, 10 generations down the road, I dread to fear what will become of our people and of Jewish identity. I mean, what being Jewish will mean further down the road is clearly a direct byproduct of the quality and intensity of the engagement between the main centers of population, of Jewish population today, Israel and the United States. And as representative of one of those centers to the other, I see it as a great responsibility of mine to reach out and engage and dialogue with the Jewish communities in our region. So that more or less encapsulates what we do at the consulate. And now let me go over a few developments in recent days and weeks that capture some of the main challenges that we're facing today in Israel and beyond. And let me start off with Israel-U.S. relations. I just mentioned our mission statement in passing. Just a few short weeks ago, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived at the United States, and he had a meeting with President Obama. And that meeting was important on 2 levels. First of all, the optics of it. Optics are very important. It was a very good meeting, for real, and a very positive one. And it's important to mention that because it came at the backdrop of months and months of tension between Israel and the United States over the nuclear deal signed with Iran. We did not hide and did not attempt to hide our thoughts about the deal. We still think it is a very disastrous one that will, at the end of the day, lead Iran to become a legitimate military nuclear power. for all the reasons, and I'm not going to go into them now, that we've talked about time and time again, up until the point the deal was signed, in an effort to avert that moment. And now we're on the day after, and we have to accept the deal, the fact that a deal has been signed and it's moving forward. And we have to readjust and recalibrate our way of thinking and our mode of operation. As it relates to Israel-US relations, I think, and by the way, that holds true for any relationship, the test of a strong relationship, be it between two people or two nations, is its ability to withstand differences, to discuss them, to hash them out, and to agree to disagree in a respectful way. And I think the meeting of Netanyahu and Obama and the good vibes that emanated from that meeting and the productivity of it are a testament to the strong special relations between Israel and the United States, in the sense that that they were not marred or compromised by a very significant disagreement that we have held and that was in the forefront of that relationship for many, many months. On a practical level, that meeting, in that meeting, the two leaders discussed a few issues that I think are worth mentioning. First of all, the main issue that was discussed was the Memorandum of Understanding between Israel and the United States that stipulates military assistance that Israel receives from the United States under a 10-year MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Now, the current one that Israel and the U.S. have is about to expire in early 2018. Hence, the need to already engage in discussions over how to structure the subsequent 10-year agreement between Israel and the United States as to the military assistance Israel receives from the United States. And by the way, when I say assistance, it's not just an act of, a simple act of generosity or anything like that. It's something that's in the best interest of both countries, because you know, the only country in the Middle East where the U.S. does not have, has never had, and will not have boots on the ground on is Israel, because we will not compromise American lives for our own security. And a single most significant principle of Israel's doctrine, national security doctrine, is to have the capability to defend itself by itself against any threat or combination of threats. But in doing so, Israel doesn't defend just itself. It also defends a whole long list of American and Western national security interests in the Middle East, being the only democratic nation, country in that region, and being the only stable force, especially these days, and I'll touch upon the Middle East these days, in the region, really securing not just its own interests and preservability, but those of the United States as well. And so, in discussing the MOU and the nature of U.S. support for Israel, the two leaders naturally discussed the nature of the Middle East these days. They touched particularly on Iran, the Palestinian arena, Syria, and of course the instability of the region as a whole, given the rise of radical Sunni and Shiite forces like ISIS and on the Sunni camp and Hezbollah on the Shiite camp. backed by Iran, and how to together stabilize that region. Let me touch on that from a broad perspective and then zoom in. On the broad perspective, we're seeing a Middle East today that has been thrust into a very long period of instability and uncertainty. There are many reasons for that I can touch on, maybe in the Q&A, because I don't want to go too long. But generally speaking, we are witnessing, especially in the wake of the Arab Spring or Arab disaster, depending on how you want to term it, that began in January 2011, a Middle East that is not abiding by the rules and principles and doctrines that we applied to it up until that point. That is, we used to associate countries with their leaders because the autocratic Arab leaders of particular countries were just there for so many decades and dictating the direction of those countries. And we figured all we have to know in order to understand where a country is going, like Egypt or Libya or Syria, is to understand the psychology of Gaddafi, Mubarak, or Assad, respectively. And we'd figure out where that country is going. Well, those leaders are gone now. And generally, the old order in the Middle East has either been thrust out or is on the way of being thrust out in many countries, and no new order has yet settled in a stable way and taken the reins of power. And so that creates a huge leadership vacuum. On another front, related, the whole nation-state concept in the Middle East is becoming irrelevant. I don't know if we're going back to the age of empires or not. There are all sorts of theories, but in reality, there is no real country called Libya today. There is no country called Iraq or Syria today. There is no country called Yemen today, in the sense that there is no centralized power that has full control over the geographical boundaries of what you would call Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya. But rather an implosion of those states into ethnic, tribal, religious elements, each vying for control. And again, that hasn't been the case for the past 100 years or so, where for those of you who are familiar with history, under the Sykes-Picot arrangements set by the colonial powers who then controlled the Middle East, I think in 1914, the nation-state concept was created and really actually held water up until a few short years ago. It was kept abreast, kept intact by the colonial powers for the first part of the 20th century, and then by some of those Arab autocratic leaders for the second part of the 20th century. And just a few short years ago, that order collapsed and became totally irrelevant. And no new order has yet been created. So these are a few of many examples of what's going on in the Middle East. The important thing to remember is that there's a huge geopolitical vacuum. And in that political vacuum, you know, vacuums don't stay like a vacuum for too long. Something always comes and fills in the void. And that's something in the Middle East, and not only in the Middle East, that has stepped in and asserted its control and is looking vigorously to impose its agenda, is radical Islam. Radical political Islam, very deeply ideologically motivated, is what you see coming into all of those areas, all of those countries I mentioned, and others, where a geopolitical vacuum has been created, trying to assert its reign. Now, I'm not going to go into the differences between radical Sunni or radical Shiite. They fight each other. Sunnis also fight Sunnis. Sunnis, the Sunnis of the Muslim Brotherhood of Egypt isn't the same as the Muslim Brotherhood of Jordan. And they clash with each other. And I'm not going to go into the whole dynamics. The important thing to understand is that at the end of the day, they all share the same goal and aspiration, which is deeply motivated from a fervent religious conviction that their particular version of Islam, be it Shia or Sunni, it doesn't matter, it is that they are on a mission from God to impose violently, ruthlessly, if need be, actually at times even it's desired to be that way, that they are to impose that version of Islam on the rest of the region, but not just the region, globally to the rest of the world. By the way, in parentheses, I will say that's the only reason Iran seeks military nuclear capabilities. It doesn't need to have nukes in order to switch on the light or generate electricity. It has enough natural resources. Only in order to, at the end of the day, impose its, in Iran's case, Shiite radical version of Islam onto the rest of the world. And the Sunnis are the same. The embodiment of today of the radical Islamic Sunni version is ISIS. And since the objective of these groups and countries, yes, they start locally and regionally, but their objective and directive and conviction is that this has to be done globally, and that they have to fight and annihilate any power or ideology or mindset that conflicts with their twisted version of Islam, then that's why you see the terrorism that is emanated by these groups proliferate outside of the Middle East, to Paris, to Mali just 2 days ago, to various places in Africa, like Nigeria. Boko Haram is an example. To the Sinai Peninsula, it's very highly likely that it was ISIS that took down the Russian plane from Sharm el-Sheikh, to Turkey, to all over Europe, really. Paris last week was a striking example, but to the United States. Their aspirations are global. That is a huge threat. We see Iran as being on the top list of that threat because it is a country, and it operates like a country. It's not just a terrorist organization, and it's about to get nuclear weapons. So you pair that ideology with nukes, nothing good can come out of it. But it's not only Iran in that respect. And it starts from the Middle East, but it doesn't end there, as we saw in Paris and as we see almost on a daily basis. And when discussing, I'm going back to the meeting of the Prime Minister and the President, when discussing how to build up Israel's capabilities, much of that, I'm sure, was infused into the discussion of that reality that I've described, that emanates in the Middle East, and that has to be dealt with first and foremost in the Middle East. And it's not easy for many reasons. I'll mention one. Unlike dealing with a country which has to take responsibility not just for disseminating its ideology, but also for education, sewage systems, road safety, what have you, and economy has to devote much of its energies into if it's a normal country that seeks to thrive, to these productive areas, terrorist organizations do not. However, the terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and ISIS, for example, in the Middle East, are not just guerrilla fighters with Kalashnikovs. Unlike what we are used to deal with respect to terrorism, we're dealing today with terrorist organizations, and ISIS is a classic example, with nation-like assets of sophisticated weaponry, of control over population, and control over large swaths of land. And that makes dealing with them even way more complicated, and creating a deterrence with them as a state of Israel, for example, which does abide by international humanitarian laws, to create a credible deterrence factor with these terrorist organizations is a challenge that I think we've never faced before. I think that we have gathered a lot of experience in doing so, especially up north with Hezbollah, which again is both a terrorist organization and a political party in Lebanon, and an Iranian, all at the same time, an Iranian military division deployed on Israel's northern border, and an Iranian proxy helping the Assad regime massacre its own people. How do you create a deterrence with Hezbollah? I think we're doing a decent job. The last time we did have to engage militarily with Hezbollah was in 2006, the Second Lebanon War, if you recall. And between then and now, nearly 10 years, we really have, even though Hezbollah has 100,000 rockets and missiles aimed at Israel, none have been fired at Israel. So it is possible, is what I'm saying, but very challenging to create deterrence in a region that is fraught with such instability and uncertainty, and whose main actors today are not nation states, whom you could deal with as a nation state to a nation state, but terrorist organizations ideologically motivated, that will stop at nothing, and that have state-like assets. This is the reality. 10 years, in the coming years, that reality will be infused with an empowered Iran that is gaining international legitimacy, and that will be on its way to nuclear capabilities that could lead to a military bomb. All of that pretty much was discussed in that meeting, and will continue being discussed, both in the context of the MOU, the military assistance, and also in the context of many strategic partnerships and means of working together between Israel and the United States, intelligence sharing and so on and so forth, missile defense capabilities that Israel has against various scenarios, also supported by the United States, and many other issues. Let me zoom in on what's happening in Israel. Please, someone wave when I have just a few more minutes left, because I don't want to go beyond. Was that? Yeah, okay. Scratch. Just a scratch. Okay.
It's about 20 up now.
Sorry?
It's about 20 to 11 now.
Okay. So let me turn quickly to two things. One, a manifestation of that situation I just described, of unwatched and unchecked terrorism emanating from, and we mustn't shy away from saying it, radical Islam. What we see in Paris, in Turkey, in the Sinai, in Belgium, in Israel, in Iraq, and in Syria are very different in many ways. They all have one thing in common. They are all terrorism emanating from radical Islam. And we shouldn't be shy to say that. And once we acknowledge that and understand that this is what we're dealing with, we can start to think of ways how to deal with it. But many people are still afraid to admit it, or uncomfortable admitting it. And oddly enough, when terrorists are killing people in Paris, Israel is still being blamed for that, and the settlements, of all things. Because of a few houses in Judea and Samaria, terrorists kill people in Paris. It's mind-boggling to think about it, but there are still seemingly serious-minded countries and individuals, like the Swedish foreign minister, but others, that actually truly believe that to be the case. So let me dispel that by talking about the terrorism wave of terrorism that Israel has been experiencing for the past 2 months already, a little more, that has taken the toll of 19 innocent Israeli lives thus far, and keeps on unfortunately persisting. So we've almost on a daily basis, and I'm sure you're reading and hearing about it, there are lone individuals, Palestinians or Palestinian or people who are inspired by what they hear from the Palestinian Authority, who are going out, picking knives, guns, cars, vehicles, and looking to kill Israelis wherever they see them. And that's a phenomenon occurring on a daily basis, and has been for at least 2.5 months and counting. The common explanation of the Palestinians and of those who are looking to blame it on Israel is that this is a result of people that are frustrated. First of all, there's been a lie that's been perpetuated that Israel is seeking to undermine the status quo at Temple Mount and infringe on the rights of Muslims to pray in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, in their holy mosque on the Mount, which is of course, a gross lie, and can be easily dispelled. It's not even repeated these days because it's such a blatant lie. And also, so that was the spark that fueled initially this wave of Palestinian terrorism. And then so many others came and said, well, that's a spark, and add on to that all of the frustrations of those poor, desolate Palestinians from the stalemate and peace talks, and from the continued construction of Israeli houses in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. Mike, you should have corrected me when I said West Bank. But Judea and Samaria and the Golan Heights. Let me say the following on all of these arguments. Palestinian terrorism against Jews living in the land of Israel has nothing to do neither with Jewish construction in Judea, Samaria, or the Golan Heights. And it also, surprisingly, I will tell you, has zero to do with Palestinian aspirations for nationhood. Terrorism against Jews living in Israel has begun, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, in 1920, long before there was even a state of Israel. And it continued, waves of terrorism, in 1936, 1939, of course, in the War of Independence, in the Fadayun Palestinian terrorism of the 1950s, in the subsequent intifadas, and many, many instances in between, waves of vicious terrorism against Israelis that started before there was a state of Israel, continued at the peak of establishing the state of Israel, and continue today after the establishment of the State of Israel. It's terrorism that took place before there were any settlements. It's terrorism that intensified after Israel pulled out its entire civilian and military operations in Gaza, So after we've essentially evacuated settlements, that should have, according to those voices, it should have actually eased terrorism. On the contrary, and it's terrorism that continues today. So it has nothing to do with Jewish construction in Judea and Samaria. By the way, it's perfectly legitimate to be frustrated, as many Palestinians and some Israelis are, from settlement activity. However, to say that that's the root cause of terrorism is simply false on so many levels. As I just illustrated, nothing to do with that. It also has nothing to do with Palestinian aspirations for statehood. Because oddly enough, if you do look at those periods where Israel and the Palestinians were engaged in negotiations to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's not paradoxical in my mind, but it's very odd that actually in those junctures of negotiations where the Palestinians had, so to speak, the upper hand, where if they would have cut a deal, they would have gotten the 99% of what they requested, that is the point where all of a sudden they left the table and terrorism began. 2 more minutes. So it has nothing to do with settlement activity, nothing to do with Palestinian national aspirations. It has everything to do with Jewish national aspirations, with Israel being the nation state of the Jewish people, and with a continued mindset of the Palestinian leadership and subsequently people that does not acknowledge or refuses to acknowledge Israel, the state of Israel, as the nation state of the Jewish people. That's the only thing that terrorism against Jews in Israel lies on. And it is, of course, fueled by lies, like the Al-Aqsa Mosque lie, and by an incessant indoctrination of hatred towards Israel and Jews by the Palestinian Authority. And we see that in Palestinian kindergarten summer camps where they're handed, 3-year-olds are handed rifles, taught how to kill Jews. We see that in the naming of public squares after Palestinian terrorists that killed Jews, and in the encouragement of the Palestinian people to follow in their footsteps, encouraged by the Palestinian leadership and clerics, and so many other examples. I just want to mention that, and I elaborated maybe a little too long, because in those voices that still try in this day and age to pin global Islamic jihadist terrorism on Israel, not just what goes on in Israel, but its manifestation outside of Israel. It's Israel's fault. That still happens. Labeling of Israeli products, again, singling Israel out. I can't think of any other name for that than blatant anti-Semitism, honestly. Labeling Israeli products as if to say these are not to be bought. Yesterday or 2 days ago, a German distributor took them off the shelves. I forgot the name of the department store. You know, and I'll end with this. If Israel was the 50th, 60th, 137th country whose products are labeled, or who is encouraged to be boycotted, along with a whole bunch of others like China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, so on and so forth, then I will be very willing to engage in a discussion with whoever declares that as their policy as to why I think they're wrong in Israel's case. But when Israel is the only country out of, say, 200 areas under dispute in the entire world whose products are being labeled, and when Israel is the only country being boycotted, and when Israel is singled out that way, it has, again, going back to what I said earlier, nothing to do with any of the politics or the geopolitics in Israel, between Israel and the Palestinians, or in the Middle East. It has everything to do with blatant discrimination, hatred, hypocrisy, whatever you want to call it, aimed at Israel. We should all acknowledge that as well. I'll be happy to take any questions from the audience.
All right, two things. First of all, please keep in mind we have 10 minutes left, so make your questions very brief. Secondly, the proceeds for the 50-50 are being given today to the Jewish Family Service for their food pantry. They're in desperate need of funds. If you have not yet purchased a ticket, please see, folks, would you raise your hand if you're see back here? Back here is where the tickets are being sold. They're also accepting additional donations beyond that. Let's now start with the questions. We'll take one at a table to start with. Yes.
I have to go help my kids with the secret shopping for Hanukkah in the basement of the garage, but I wanted to put out something really quick to you. It's often said that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Chamberlain in the UK with the Nazis said now we have peace in our time. The U.S. with North Korea giving them a treaty as far as the nuclear development or not doing it. The U.S. got stabbed in the back. The North Koreans took the food and the fuel and did their own bomb anyway. Kerry did the same thing with Iran, and even the day after or 2 days after, Iran was basically spitting in their face saying, oh, we're going to do what we want anyway. So the question is, I want to know what Israel's stance is on the fact that the United States has made this rather large mistake, and what are their plans on Iran's nuclear aspirations? What are they, I mean, obviously they're now sort of on their own again to try and take care of this.
Well, first of all, very directly, we want to see, and that came up in the conversation between the President and the Prime Minister, we want to make sure Iran doesn't violate it. Now that it's been signed, we still think it's a terrible mistake. At the very least, it should not violate it. It should be punished if it does. And we should be diligent and together monitor any aggression that is fueled or motivated or inspired by Iran in the region in order to know how to properly address it. In the long run, we have to build, and we are continuing building our capabilities against any potential scenario that could evolve out of this agreement.
Now, thank you. That was a great example. Just ask your question. All right, let's do this. Wait, you'll be next, then you, then you, then you, then you. Keep track.
What is actually the chance of peace in that part of the world? I know you have to be vigilant, but what chances are there?
You know, oddly enough, Israel has, I said, and I was probably mistaken, that Israel is the only beacon of stability in the Middle East. There are also two peace agreements in Israel has with two of its neighbors, Egypt and Jordan, that are just as stable and that haven't withered one bit in the past few years, where the entire region has been in its chaotic state that it's been, which to me illustrates that peace is doable, it's achievable, and it's durable, because we have a peace agreement with Jordan and with Egypt that hold water. It's not ideal. It's not a war peace. We don't hug each other. We don't exchange. Send our cultural troops to Jordan and Egypt and vice versa. But it's peace that allows a cooperation on key strategic areas of mutual interest, and it allows us not to worry about large-scale aggression from those countries and deploy our resources elsewhere. So I think it's doable. I don't think with the Palestinians that it's doable tomorrow morning. I think we have to take an evolutionary long-term approach on this one, rather than revolutionary one.
All right, the next person.
What additional support has the United States is planning to give Israel as a result of the Netanyahu-Obama meeting?
Well, that meeting hasn't broken it down to the specifics, but rather to working groups that are to determine the specifics. So I can't answer that yet, but I think there's been a firm commitment to, first of all, there's been an initial shared vision of where the Middle East is heading and what that implies with respect to Israel's capability needs. And the breaking it down into specifics has to be done in working groups over the next few weeks, and hopefully by the end of 2016 or mid or end, they will have hashed it out. Current military, under the current MOU, Israel receives $3.1 billion annually from the United States, just a figure. But there's so much more to it, and it's not just a figure. It breaks down into many specific areas of cooperation beyond that figure.
Thank you.
And I don't know exactly what's going to...
You mentioned what percentage has to be spent in the United States.
Oh, and nearly 80%, I forgot if it's 80 or 84, or have to be spent in procurement from U.S. company.
All right, next person.
Okay. I understand that Israel is wanting to officially annex the Golan, and I'm wondering how is that coming? Is U.S. supporting that? And about the oil discovery in the Golan?
Well, we have officially annexed the Golan, and Begin did in 1981 or 1980. But look, with everything going on in Syria right now, I don't think today, even those with whom this doesn't sit very well, I'm not sure are calling to hand it to the Al-Nusra Front or ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Assad or any of these forces. This may not be the most opportune time to figure out what to do with the Golan. However, Israel officially annexed the Golan. Yes, it's not, especially Europe does not see that as a kind eye. And your next question was?
The oil that's there.
Well, Israel has potential oil reserves not just there, but also in many of the in some parts of the Negev area, and it has natural gas in its offshore economic waters. And I think, as far as energy, energy ecosystem of Israel, it looks most to its developing and exploiting its natural gas that could pretty much take care of Israel's energy needs for the next 50 years or so as the main area of focus in terms of energy security.
Hey, it's disheartening that Israel didn't, that the United States didn't follow Israel's concern about signing the Iran deal. I just wonder, if we flip back to 2003, what was Israel's official stance on the United States invading Iraq? Were they for it or against it?
I don't recall we were officially for or against, because we don't wade into U.S. foreign policy and determine it. So I don't know that we had an official position for or against it. I may be wrong, but I don't think we did. It would even surprise me if we waded into what really was a political decision of the United States.
It's 11 o'clock. You got a couple more minutes?
Yeah, take a few
Okay,
more.
we have a few more.
Yeah.
Over here.
Over here.
If I may, over here, and over here. There's our three.
My friend Mike goes in.
Well, there's our three.
Fast question. Since the recent Paris attacks by ISIS, has the relationship between France and Israel improved? And I've read in the Defense News that Israel is now giving more accurate human intelligence on the ground in Syria to our allies in France than the United States.
Relationships don't develop in a week's time, but I think it would be safe to say that we've acknowledged that this is not just a threat on Israel, but really a global threat long ago. And we have been, for a while, working with some of Europe, certainly with the US, but also European key intelligence services in analyzing, identifying, surveying the threat of global jihad in its many manifestations. And I think it's very true to say that we're doing the same with France. Whether we're doing it more so today than a week and a half ago, I'm not sure. But most certainly.
Thank you. Mine is more a general ISIS question. It seems to me that the way you defeat ISIS is to destroy their access to equipment. And I don't understand why the United States doesn't have the ability to wipe out the areas of I mean, it seems to me that that's the way we won the war, the Second World War. And I don't understand.
Well, the question is, how do you defeat ISIS, and isn't the proper way to do it was to take out its equipment? And why isn't that done? Well, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the United States or anyone else who can or cannot just go in and do it. I will say, as a general rule, airstrikes don't do the trick, never have. And so you really are asking the question, who is going to be putting boots on the ground and risking, because it's not a foolproof scenario, and risking mucking it up like potentially as it's been done before. And that's a tough question. Yes, certainly the U.S. could do it. Does it want to? Turkey could do it, but it has many conflicts of interest. Many Arab countries who see ISIS as a threat to themselves. Saudi Arabia maybe could do it, but they really don't have armies, right? Or they have armies that collapse on the first challenge they face. So, how to exactly take out ISIS as the power it is? And I would say who would put boots on the ground for that purpose, and how long how much standing would that be? I think it's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that. I know various potential scenarios, but I don't know. None of them are easy. They're all very difficult. They require a tremendous amount of political energy and will, and I don't have a clear-cut answer, but I think you're right. It can't just be airstrikes.
And the last question.
Okay, so I'd like to bring it back to the local point. You talked about the grassroots and you like to coordinate. So those of us in South Jersey like to visit Israel, and we don't necessarily feel the need to go to New York or some other airport to go there. I understand that there's a connection between Philadelphia and Tel Aviv.
Not anymore. Because American Airlines canceled that flight. It was U.S.
I was just wondering, is there anything we could do to persuade them to reopen it?
Yeah, send letters, protest. Look, the claim is that it wasn't a profitable flight. And then there are many speculations that this is just a claim, but that really there were other considerations that have more to do with political pressure than profitability. I don't know. I don't have any of that inside information. But it's very disheartening to see if a route that for 6 years appeared to be very profitable and full, all of a sudden canceled a year after American Airlines consumed U.S. Airways, because it was U.S. Airways up until that point. So I have no way of knowing the real motive. I don't know the real motives. I can only take what they say for granted. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that can be done. It never hurts to raise up your voice and say, this looks...
Well, for what it's worth, I did actually write a letter, but it occurred to me maybe a better answer might be to have El Al come and serve. The way they do in the Boston.
Look, at the end of the day, it's business. And El Al is not, is a private-owned company.
I understand.
If they find it profitable, trust me, they're going to. They will. They don't need me to give them that
You might mention it
advice.
to them. It might help your trip there when you have to go back to Tel Aviv. So
Yeah, right. Save me the commute to Lagarde.
to help out.
Thank you.
I actually had another little question about to the international thing. How's Israel doing with Kurdistan? With the Kurds?
You know, we've had a long-lasting, positive, collaborative relationship with the Kurdish people, and you know, there are Kurdish people in various countries. It's not it's Kurdistan. By Kurdistan, you mean northern Iraq. I believe, to the best of my knowledge, it's still, you know, very productive, and I'm not. I don't know if there's any, or to the extent that there is any on-the-ground assistance, militarily or otherwise, but the relationship continues to be very positive in the general sense of it.
Well, thank you very much, Consul General. We have one final chore, and that is we're going to have the, I could save everybody time and tell you the winning ticket now.
I don't think we're going to do it that
But
way.
I'd like to also introduce Jennifer. Jennifer Dollinger, what's your last name?
Woods. Woods?
Woods, my cousin. I used to babysit for her. And she's representing Jewish Family Service and the food bank, and she'll accept the check for the proceeds. And Consul General, Ed Stein is our treasurer.
Totally collected, 175.87 is the 50/50. Would you pick a number for us, and you can read it for us if you would.
Okay, with great pleasure. Keep this coupon.
Got
it. Okay, the number is 745784.
784. Wait.
Well, you can go ahead.
Okay.
You got 2 minutes?
2 minutes. I can do less than 2 minutes.
All right, one moment, please. Jennifer has a few words on behalf of the agency.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Dollinger Woods. I'm one of the board members at Jewish Family Children's Services. And I wanted to thank everyone for having us here and for your generous donation and support. And for those of you who are not aware, the agency has been serving the South Jersey region for 70 years, Camden County, Burlington, Gloucester County. Regardless of race or religion, we provide help and services and support. And we have 3 food banks, 3 kosher food banks in the area, which your generous donation will be supporting as well. And I just wanted to, and actually the need has really gone up. In the past year, there's been cuts in the federal, what used to be called food stamps. It's called SNAPs. I forget what it stands for, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. And since there's been cuts in those, in that program, we've seen a 25% increase in the past year. And in the past year, we've provided 7,000 people with over $200,000 worth of food. So we really appreciate your support. And just a final note, we are in need of turkeys, frozen turkeys, kosher or non-kosher. We have 26 families on the waiting list. I know it's short notice, Thanksgiving's Thursday, but some people get free turkeys from ShopRite. If anybody is able to donate a frozen kosher or non-kosher turkey, they're accepting them at the JFCS, right in the JCC on the side there, where, I don't know if you know, that where it says Jewish Family Children's Services, they have a freezer there.
Where do you, I couldn't hardly hear that, where do you take the turkey?
Well, we have 3 food pantries, but the frozen turkey, we have refrigeration capabilities in the Federation building where the JCC is, on the side, towards the Saltzman House.
Services?
Yeah, Jewish Family Children's Services, right there, yes.
What was the latest you could deliver on turkey?
They asked if I could ask people to deliver it tomorrow, but they'll take it whenever. There's always families in need. I just know that there's 26, specifically 26 in need for this Thanksgiving. But they do, Bethel here, they cooked Thanksgiving meals for their kosher Meals on Wheels. Just last week we cooked about 300 meals that will be going out for Thanksgiving. So, anyway, thank you very, very much for your support.
Thank you.